Good day, everyone. Today, my group will be presenting on the fascinating topic of signal modulation, with a special focus on amplitude modulations. Through this presentation, we aim to explore how modulations enable effective communication, its principle, application, and advancement. And before we are going to start our present, you may scan this QR code to answer the quiz. And have you ever wondered how your voice travels over the airwaves or how radio stations works? So now we introduce you the signal modulations. And what is actually signal modulations? Signal in English is an electrical impulse or radio wave transmitted or received, while the modulation has the meaning of the process of modifying or varying the properties of a signal of waveform. And why do we need the signal modulations? Because it enables long-distance communications, optimize the bandwidth, and reduce the interference, while we only need a smaller antennas to build. You can see here the C equal to lambda frequency, and while keeping the speed of light constant, your wavelength can be reduced by adding the frequency. So this is actually the overview pictures of the modulations. We have a mixed message signal and carrier signal, and then we get up a modulator signal. And here are the types of modulations. We have analog modulations and digital modulations. But our focus today is only amplitude modulations. So now we go to the next part.
So for amplitude modulation, basically amplitude modulation is a fundamental analog modulation technique that encodes or embeds information such as voice or music onto a high frequency signal called a carrier or carrier wave for efficient transmission. So it is mostly used in radio broadcasting, telecommunications, and other wireless communication systems. So as a mathematical expression is there below, whereby S stands for AM signal, AC stands for carrier amplitude, M stands for modulating signal, and F stands for carrier frequency. So moving on to the next slide, we have three graphs which illustrate modeling signals, carrier frequency, and modulating signal. So for the first graph, which is highlighted in red, a modulating signal, which is an information we want to send, such as voice, music, or data. For example, think of it as a song or a radio broadcast signal. And next, we have a carrier frequency on the middle, which is a high frequency wave that carries the information over a long distances. For instance, AM radio stations use carrier frequencies between 530 kilohertz and 1,700 kilohertz. And last, we have modulated signal, which is a carrier wave's amplitude, which is modified to follow the shape of the modulating signal. So this creates a signal that can travel far and can be decoded by a receiver to produce original information, like hearing music on AM radio. Next. So we move on to wave visualization. So for wave visualization, we have three types of signals, which is modulated carrier signal, modulating signal, and amplitude modulated AM signal. So for the first one, unmodulated carrier signal, the carrier signal is a high frequency sinusoidal wave that acts as the base signal to be modulated, and it can be expressed as follows below. And for the next one, we have modulating signal, which is the modulating signal which contains the information to be transmitted, for example, an audio. It is a lower frequency signal compared to a carrier signal, and it can be expressed as follows as below. For the last one, we have amplitude modulated signal. The AM signal is the result of combining the carrier and the modulated signal, and the formula is shown as below. For the next one, see, for the first graph, which is highlighted in blue, we have the unmodulated carrier signal on top, which is a high frequency sine wave with constant amplitude. All right. So on the middle, we have the modulating signal, which is basically a broader type of signal with a low frequency sine wave representing the information to be transmitted. And last but not least, we have amplitude modulated AM signal in the bottom. The carrier wave amplitude varies according to the modulating signal, forming an envelope that matches the modulating waveform. Next, for AM, we have significant key features, but mostly we will talk about two today, which is bandwidth. The bandwidth of an AM signal is a range of frequencies which occupies, is a bandwidth of frequencies it occupies in a frequency spectrum. And for the calculation section, the bandwidth is determined by the high frequency in the modulation signal FM. So the AM signal consists basically on three factors: carrier frequency, upper sideband, and lower sideband. And for the modulation index, which measures the extent of amplitude variation in carrier wave relative to its unmodulated amplitude. So AM, which stands for peak amplitude of modulating signal, and AC, amplitude of carrier signal. So we have three types of effects for modulation index. When the modulation index is less or equal than 1, the signal is undermodulated. When the modulation index is equal to 1, we consider the signal as perfectly modulated. And when the modulation index is greater than 1, we consider the signal as overmodulated. Next.
Okay, we continue with application of amplitude modulation. The first one is radio broadcasting. What is the use of radio broadcasting? Is of course used to communicate in a long distance. It also can be used to listen to a song or news. One of the common transmission system is being used by an army because it's more safety and secure than our normal transmission system. it is an old system, amplitude modulation, because it has less bandwidth and many noise, but it is still widely used till today. So not to mention, today we use FM, right? So that's why we have ERA FM, HITS FM. So that is the modern one that we use because it is more efficient than amplitude modulation. The second application is aviation communication. It's mainly used by pilots or watchtower at the airport for navigating and report whether they have any issue during flight. So, for example, if engine failure, hijacking, or emergency landing. So, by using amplitude modulation, they can know and report the situation fast enough to avoid any unnecessary problem. And the third one is telemetry system. What is telemetry system? It's basically our normal communication system, like, for example, cell phone. So, you can communicate with someone outside of the state or country during your time. Okay, next slide. Okay, what are the challenges of amplitude modulation? So, like I said before, since this is old technology, so there are more challenges besides its modern counterpart. So, one of the challenges is noise sensitivity. This is because AM signals are highly susceptible to noise because noise typically affects the amplitude of the signal, which is where the information is encoded. This makes the AM transmission more prone to distortion and signal degradation in noisy environment. So, it means that when there are more noise, so it's hard to hear the signal that you receive from someone. And second is bandwidth usage. AM require a bandwidth equal to twice the highest frequency in the modulating signal, the double sideband spectrum. This wider bandwidth required can lead to inefficient use of spectrum and potential interference with adjacent channels. So it basically means that it needs double the frequency for a low amount of signal to be transmitted. So it's not efficient. And the last one is power efficiency. AM requires significant power to transmit the carrier signal, which does not carry any information. Only a small portion of the transmission power is used for the sideband, where the actual information is contained, making AM is power inefficient. So it's basically the same as the bandwidth usage. It needs more power while just transmitting the less signal. And next slide. Okay. This one is the difference between amplitude modulation and frequency modulation, which is the modern part. So first is in amplitude modulation, the frequency and phase remain the same, while the amplitude and phase remain the same. This is one of the similarities. But then the modulation index varies from 0 to 1. But the modulation index for frequency modulation is always greater than 1. So when it's more greater than 1, it is more efficient and it also can transmit more signal. And lastly, it has simple circuit for amplitude modulation. And for frequency modulation, it has complex circuit. So while it seems like frequency modulation has complete circuit, but it is more widely used and more suitable to use because it is more efficient. Okay, on to the next slide. So last slide is about last of my part is advantages of limitation of amplitude modulation. So the advantage is simplicity of implementation. So like I said, the infrastructure to build the system is very simple, so it's easy to design and manufacture. And cost effective. Of course, it's more less costing because it's not complex like frequency modulation. And wide coverage. And signal can travel great distance, especially in medium wave and short wave band. And second is reliable over optical, and signal are less affected by physical obstruction compared to higher frequency signal. Lastly, effective in rural and remote areas. And radio remains primary medium for communication in underdeveloped regions. So, so next is limitation. One of the limitations is the same that I said before. So low spectral efficiency and require a larger bandwidth compared to the information it carries. Then you also have poor audio quality because of the noise. So it makes the signal become unstable for high fidelity sound. Outdated in modern system because right now we're using frequency modulation. So it become more outdated, but it's still widely used because it is more simple and less costly.
So now I'm going to talk about the advancement in amplitude modulation. So here, just now we can hear that there is a lot of weakness about amplitude modulation. The first one is noise sensitivity. So there are a lot of ways that we can reduce the noise sensitivity. So the first one is DAM, digital amplitude modulation. So you can see in the diagram, when there is signal 1, binary signal 1, the carrier signal present at a specific amplitude, while at the binary 0, the carrier signal absent or at a lower amplitude. So with DAM, we can have a more robust noise reduction through error detection and correction techniques, and this will reduce the noise sensitivity. So for the second method, it is improved receiver technology with noise filtering and automatic gain control. So it is on the receiver side that we need to reduce the noise for AM so that the noise won't affect the message that we need to send and receive. For hybrid system, it is the combine of of AM and digital system that provide error correction. It's slightly similar to DAM. So it combines analog and digital modulation to improve efficiency and reduce noise. So for the next slide, I will talk about the reducing bandwidth usage and also improving power efficiency. So in terms of reducing bandwidth usage, there is two methods: single sideband modulation and double sideband suppressed carrier. Reducing the bandwidth usage, you can see the upper part graph. Usually carrier, we have a middle spectrum that is frequency carrier spectrum, and then for AM, we have both sideband at both sides, blue and the red color. For single sideband, we just transfer the blue side. This will have the bandwidth usage, and it is efficient in reducing the bandwidth usage. For double sideband, so it reduces the carrier because it says suppressed carrier. So actually, it is more power efficiency compared to the original signal. And for the energy efficient modulation schemes that we use to improve the power efficiency, QAM, quadrature amplitude modulation. So it is a more recent advancement that we use to improve in data rate and energy efficiency. So how it is worked? It is by combining both amplitude modulation and phase modulation to encode more data per symbol. So it changed both amplitude and phase carrier so that QAM can transmit multiple bits information per symbol, allowing a higher data rate and greater efficiency while using band power. So this is a more recent concept. For the next slide, I will talk about the misconception about amplitude modulation and why do we still need that. Most of us think that AM is outdated because just like what the previous speaker said, daily life we use FM more, but actually AM is very important in rural communication and emergency broadcasting. This is because at rural communication, we need a frequency that can transfer further, a signal that can transfer a long distance, and also when there is emergency, when the electricity is down, FM needs more energy to transfer, while AM radio can reach a bigger audience and transmit the important information that the government needs. So AM is also considered too noisy, but we can solve it with digital AM, improve clarity, and it is AM is considered inefficient, but we have also solution for that, just like what I mentioned, single sideband and double sideband suppressed carrier. So there is example in next slide that tells you how AM is important. In America, the National Agency of US use AM radios to transfer the president's message to those affected areas, especially in disasters. So this basically tells us how AM radios work in larger geographical area, and what is the real usage in the current situation. We can refer to the next slide, which is talking about Palau's disaster where there is a communication breakdown in 2012. So it is hard for the government to reach out to the audience, to the victims of the disaster. So it is important to have AM to access to a wider group when there is a typhoon or emergency, so that they can save lives, they can know where to get their help to. So actually it is very useful AM. We don't need to abandon AM even we have after FM, we have FM communication technology. Yeah, and I would like to talk about the next slide. Is you can do your quiz again to check if your understanding improves or not. During this presentation, what we want you to take away is signal modulation, amplitude modulation, and application of AM. So signal modulation is very important as it is the process of modifying carrier signals properties such as amplitude, frequency, or phase to encode information. So amplitude modulation is analog modulation where the amplitude is changed in proportion to the message signal. So strengths, for example, mentioned before, it is simple circuit, low cost, long distance communication. Weakness, it is highly susceptible to noise, larger bandwidth, and power inefficiency. So for the application of AM, just now mentioned before, radio broadcasting, aviation communication, telemetry systems. And I hope that you all learn much from this. Please can to give us some feedback.